Serious, what is the creepiest or most unexplained thing that's happened to you that you still think about to this day? U/crippled unironically responded. To this day, there was a kid in my class that no one else remembers. I distinctly remember playing with this kid in kindergarten, and we were pretty much inseparable. About a month past Christmas break he disappeared. No one remembered him. Not the teachers, or the others in my class. No one. I even asked the school counselor if he was okay, and she humored me by going through records to see if he transferred. She couldn't find a thing. I think about it at least once a month. U/omnipresent rain responded. When I was 13, moved into my brother's bedroom, as it is an extension to the original house with an en suite and is far larger than my old room. Originally it was a tiny box room with the entrance to the attic but was extended outwards. The attic entrance is always open, with a permanent set of metal ladders angled up into it. There's a picture of it here. The grey arch is where the original room ended. Within a few weeks of moving in, wake up in the middle of the night to see a figure staring down me, with a white head like a skull and formless black body. It would slowly move down to the foot of my bed and stare me until I moved, at which point it would sink into the floor. Just sleep paralysis, right? And I'd begged to move into the room and had just got it set up so Elle wasn't going to leave. I didn't really talk about it to anyone. It gradually became less frequent over time. 8 years after this, my brother mentioned at a get-together that he used to have a sleep paralysis demon when he lived in that room, a half-joking, half-freaked-out way to other people when the topic of them came up. He described the exact same fucking thing. Neither of us mentioned it to anybody else at the time it was happening, so we have no explanation for us both experiencing the same thing. Tam currently back from uni myself due to corona with that dark void in the ceiling in the corner of my room. U/Avion Chef responded. Was delivering newspapers on my paper route when a long-time customer pulled his car next to me and asked me to just give him his daily newspaper now because he was going on a long trip. I handed him his newspaper, then skipped his house as I continued my route. The next day I was collecting the weekly fees. You used to have to go collect the money back then, no internet payment yet, and I went to his house to collect my fee. His wife answers and promptly complains that I missed her house on my deliveries the day before. I explained to her that her husband pulled up next to me. I told her what he said and that I gave him the paper. She started crying, told me that he had died a couple weeks ago and it was obviously not possible that I spoke with her husband the day before. I know what I saw, and nearly 30 years later I still think about that situation. I have no way to logically explain what happened and it still give me the creeps. U/deleted responded. I don't think I've ever talked about this to anyone cause it still hurts to think about it, but yeah, I really wanted to share this here. Also, this is quite a long one. I had this neighbor who was around 30 and he was such a sweet guy. Let's say his name was Adam. I felt like he was the kind of older brother I've always wished for. He was an all-rounder, gym freak, good at singing and playing every possible instrument, dance, sports, cooking, etc. He used to take me and my younger brother to the beach wherever possible. So this incident took place 3 days before my 14th birthday. I was on my way to school in the morning when this absurd scene flashed in front of my eyes. It was him getting into an accident and dying. It felt surreal. I almost wanted to cry, but then I told myself maybe it's because I had watched a movie with a character dying the previous night. I continued with the day and it was almost 8 p.m. when my parents got a call from someone. I could see their face change expressions. Once the call ended, they said they needed to go somewhere and would be back in a while. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I felt that something wasn't right. Next morning I woke up to the worst news of my life. Adam was no more. Apparently he met with a major accident the previous night and died on the spot. I didn't know how to react because a few hours before he died, I did have a bad feeling. For days I couldn't even sleep and I blamed myself because I felt like maybe I could have warned him about it and maybe he would still gonna be alive. It's been almost 7 years since this incident took place, but every time I think about it, my heart aches and I still wished he was alive. I still can't figure out why I had that sort of a feeling hours before it actually happened and it scares me. U/Biology J responded. Driving home from work late one night I was followed and it was weird. I left the hospital and turned off the main road to a bunch of side streets I would take. At one point I noticed a car behind me that made the same left turn as me. They sped up to get behind me. I thought nothing of it. Then I briefly thought about running to 7-Eleven to grab some food and turned on my right signal. But I realized I had food at home, so I turned my signal off. The car behind me turned on their right signal and turned it off as well exactly as I had. At that point I got a bit spooked. So I turned my right signal on and they did as well. Instead, at the next intersection, I turned left even though my right signal was on. They did as well. They proceeded to follow me through a series of odd turns. Eventually, I turned onto a cul-de-sac I knew about and figured I could turn around there and look at the driver to see who was following me. As I approached the end of the road, they figured out what I was doing. They stopped and did a fast K-turn and sped off. It was weird. Still don't know who it was. You/Danadoodle responded. I used to work in a nursing home where I cared for dementia patients. Every patient on the hall I worked on would steal spoons from dinner to give to the kids because they like shiny things. It got to the point where once a week LD have to go through everyone's room to take back the spoons. I asked the patients about the kids many times but never got a good answer. I'd hear things like they just live here, or they stand outside in the snow and look in the windows, or they're my friends who visit. Wouldn't be so weird if they all didn't do it, but it was everyone, the ones who were still capable of speaking anyways. One time at 3 a.m. one of my patients started screaming, so I ran in her room and found her laying in bed, seemingly fine. I asked what was wrong and she said that boy is here again and won't get out of my closet. I'm scared. Like me too, Delories, what the heck? You/deleted responded. I was about 7 or 8 and I was at a housewarming party at my aunt and uncle's new house. It wasn't extravagant, it was a lower to middle class mobile home in South Carolina. Wasn't really a big party, just the family, some barbecue out back, red Solo cups, all boxes in the garage and not even distributed to their proper rooms. The only things that were unpacked and where they should be was the furniture. So anyway, 2 of my cousins were there and one of them had a friend over and we were all playing together, some made-up fantasy game where we were pretending to be princesses or something. All of the adults were out back drinking, and I emphasize, there were only 4 people inside the house. Me, my 2 cousins, and the friend. The house was set up in such a way that the kitchen was the first room you walked into from the front door, then there was the living room, then past that was the hallway with the bathroom and bedrooms. I was in the living room on the couch because that was the princess's bedroom and I was kinda just sitting there idle while the others got snacks. With no warnings or no other sounds, every single one of us hears a female voice let out an ear-piercing, gut-wrenching, overall horrifying scream in the bathroom. It was clear as day and it was so loud and sudden that it made me jump, as the living room was right next to the hallway. My cousins and their friend run out from the kitchen and look at me sitting there, and then we all run from the living room into the bathroom. Not a single person is in there, and nothing is displaced because there wasn't anything unpacked anyway except the toilet paper. We turned back around to see about 3 adults coming in from the back door because they had heard it too, coming from inside, so it wasn't any of them. You/stuck_in_a_book responded. My last year at uni, I lived in a 4-bedroom house, with a ground floor, then 2 floors with 2 bedrooms each. My friends had the first floor bedrooms, I was on the 2nd floor, and the bedroom next to me was empty because the guy who had rented it was staying with his girlfriend. I don't think he ever slept there. My bedroom and his had small crawlspace cupboards in the corners. I come home from uni one day to find my friends discussing noises sounding like footsteps that they've heard from my floor at night, when I was asleep. I laugh, because apparently these noises are loud and I have heard nothing. Because I don't believe them, I'll offer to go look at the crawl spaces. We go upstairs, I open the door of the empty room, and right as I open the door to the crawl space in the other corner of the room slams shut. We freak out. There's no reason for that door to have been open in the first place. So we grab kitchen knives, hole up in one of their rooms, and wait for a friend to come and check the cupboards and attic. We never found out what those noises were, but it was the scariest thing that happened the whole year we were there. You/Edswam responded. I don't believe in the supernatural, but I sure did remember this pair of events from over 20 years ago. I was driving down the freeway in a big city after work and my car stalled in the left lane. Some guy immediately came up and offered to tow me to the next off-ramp with a tow strap. He dropped me off, and I tried giving him some money. He declined, telling me to instead do something nice for something else. A week later, there was a rare downpour as I got in my car, same one, fixed, after work. 2 scruffer-looking guys came running up to me and one said, "Hey brother, we missed our bus." He wanted to know if I could give the 2 of them a ride. This was not the best part of town, and I wouldn't have been inclined to let them in, but I remembered what that good Samaritan had told me. Pay it forward. Okay, I said, hop in. We drove onto the freeway and I made all my usual turns heading home. It was the same way my 2 passengers wanted to go. After a while we got to an exit where they asked to be let off. It was the same exact spot, in a city of millions of people, where that other guy had unhitched my car from his truck and told me to do something nice for someone else. You/Waterbottleman 8000 responded. I have a weird memory that's not mine. I'm a small boy with a suit and tie. I'm at a party in a huge ceremonial church or something, and there's lots of men and women wearing fancy black clothes. They all get in a circle. It's the middle of the day, light was brightly coming in through the windows, and there are oldish couple dancing in the middle of the circle with some very classy fancy music, and I was trying to look at them through people's legs. Suddenly the man falls. No gunshots, no one did anything to him, and then the second he falls everyone starts screaming. People were running away, but the men were running towards him. I think I was trampled because I was lying on the floor, and then everything goes black. That's all I can remember. This is a clear memory that has stuck with me since I can remember. I'm really creeped out because I know that memory isn't mine. LV never gone to a fancy party in a church when I was little, and I don't know what happened to that man because I fell over. You/Jesus 25 responded. Driving from Northern California to Southern California through the middle of the night about a decade ago. I was tired, and the scenery along the freeway through the Central Valley isn't very interesting. I remember passing an old silo, looking at my car clock, and it was 3:17 in the morning. Drove some more, past a power line, and it was 3:21 I blinked, shuffled in my seat, and passed that same old silo, and it was back to 3:17 I was in disbelief. I just stared at my clock for a few moments. Drove a little bit more, past the same power line. 3:21 Don't know why or how, but I went backwards about 4 minutes. Never experienced anything similar or since. You/Warabaslim responded. I was at my best friend's birthday who celebrated her 18 in her big brother's house who let it for us. We are Muslim, so we don't drink alcohol or smoking weed, etc. We were like 10. The party started at 11 p.m. At 3 a.m. one of my friends asked to go to sleep because he started feeling bad. So my friend told him to go in a bedroom. She showed him which one. He came back real quick and said he can't sleep in this room because there's already a baby sleeping in the bed. We were all confused because no one of us is mom or dad, and my friend's brother either. So we decided to check, and in fact there was a baby. My friend, who celebrate her birthday, tried to awake the baby by touching him but failed. We were all afraid but decide to let him. We went to the living room and started trying to figure how where this baby come from, called my friend's brother and all. 30 minutes after, the baby suddenly start crying. I never be afraid like this in my life. All together we went to the bedroom and tried to calm him. We fed him and he fell to sleep 30 minutes after. We went back to the living room. At 5 a.m. we start cleaning the house and a friend screamed, "Where's the baby?" We stop everything and went to the bedroom and the baby wasn't here. He just disappear like he never existed. My best friend turned 23 last December, until today, we don't know where this baby come from. P.S. Sorry for my English, I'm French. I did my best. You/Suspicious responded. When I was about 8 years old, my kitten Peter Chris, named after the Kiss band member because she was a grey tabby, got hit and killed by a car. I was devastated. I had rescued her with my older sister from a box in the rain. It was a miracle our parents let us keep her and her brother, Nigel. One day after school, my mother tells me that there had been a freak accident and that my kitten had died. I found out a few years later that she had been hit. Anyway, later that night, I was laying in bed and I felt her kneading, or making biscuits as some may call it, on my legs. I looked back behind me, as I was laying on my stomach, only to see not a thing there. I laid back down and the feeling came back again. Every time I would look behind me, it stopped. To this day, I still believe it was her. TLDR, kitten got killed by car, felt her ghost making biscuits on my legs. Edit, thank you for the silver. You/Mechanic84 responded. I had a recurring nightmare of a pitch-black parasite sucking the life out of me. Sometimes it waited for me in dark corners to go to bed. My cats always slept on my bed during that time. For me it was a very stressful time. I got an itch at the place of my chest where I dreamed the parasite was sucking my life out of me. I got sick and felt a pea-sized lump. I went to my doc and they ordered a biopsy of that lump. As it turned out, I had male breast cancer at the age of 28. After I got well again, the dream never came back and my cats slept in their places again and not on my bed. The dream was creepy enough. What it made for me were my cats protecting me. You/Deleted responded. I had a schnauzer that could hear a cat stalk across a Persian rug. The slightest noise could wake her from a slumber and set off her constant barking. She made a great tent companion while on backpacking trips. Bears, raccoons, and skunks would all get fair warning if they came within range of our campsite. One morning we woke up from a night without interruptions in the backcountry of SW Colorado, and I found my tent's central guy line was no longer staked down by the aluminum stake that I had used, but instead by a piece of aspen branch that had been carved into what looked like a tiki statue. Nothing too ornate, but a snarling face with teeth had been carved from the bark, and it had obviously been heated in a fire to give it a brown color. My dog didn't make a sound, and I apparently slept harder than I thought. I scrambled out of the tent and looked around the small alpine lake and saw no other campers nor any sign that people had been around. Cut my trip short and hauled us the 8 miles back to my car. Not a single other car in the lot at the trailhead, you/Far Bunny responded. We had a rescue dog years back, terrier mix. We lived in the countryside on a wooded hillside and owned about 5 acres of woodland and rough fields, mostly wild. This dog loved to be up there chasing rabbits but loved her home too, so would never be gone for very long. One day she went missing. We took our other dogs up there and searched thoroughly, but nothing. We had another friend bring his dogs, nothing. We advertised, put up posters, we did little but search high and low for 6 days, but nothing. On the 6th day we had pretty much given up hope, but I decided to go up one last time because I had a hunch, a tickle in my belly, about one particular area which had already been thoroughly searched. I took a sickle and a pair of gardening gloves and hacked my way towards the center of a huge bramble patch. It was summer and all I could hear was birdsong and insects, but suddenly I heard a muffled yip. I called her name and then heard her again getting excited. She was deep underground in a rabbit warren. I stayed calling to her until help arrived. The local fire brigade were kind enough to come and help and advise, and we got her out eventually. She ran around like a demented muddy pup, and amazingly the vet said she was basically okay, had probably been getting enough moisture from eating mud to keep her alive. I am not generally a fanciful person, but I just knew in my knower she was there. No explanation for it. You/Boxelder88 responded. I got this voicemail.
Dear lady in Arizona, if this is you, you know who this is. It's discombobulated, scattered wits person over here in Texas. And after discussing our conversation a couple nights ago with you-know-who, it seems to be that Friday for you to arrive, Friday or Saturday would be the best. My dear son still is saying that he thinks that he will show up Thursday morning by hook or crook at the destination. And he may have to dump me along the way, but that's the plan. So call back if you have questions. This is Thursday morning here over in the great state of. So get back to me this evening, please, if we need to discuss this a little more, which I think maybe we do. And I've talked to him since I talked to you, and I think that was his best thoughts on it, but maybe you need to talk to him directly also. Thank you so much. Looking forward to
Out of the blue about 2 years ago, and I still think about it to this day. It was from a number I didn't recognize in Texas. They called twice early in the morning while I was sleeping and left this voicemail. The entire thing is unsettling. It's an old woman. The entire thing sounds like a coded message about some type of meeting. The weirdest part is there are 2 sounds of someone hanging up at the end, so I don't know if someone called me and played a recording. The whole thing is really bizarre and creeps me out. I've Googled the number various times over the past 2 years and have had no luck finding any sort of clue about who left the message or why. You/deleted responded. Not really noteworthy, but being at my apartment and doing work for school. Only to receive a text to be told that my online assignment had 4 wrong answers. Just out of the blue, no contact ID or anything. I began to slightly panic and do virus checks and other safety measures. I saved my files to my cloud QND, reset my computer for safety. To this day I run a VPN and antivirus. For someone to look at what you're doing and to just say something in a text makes second guess how safe you are on the internet. You/fabulous_Ferusha responded. I've shared this before, but I still think it's an interesting story. I was exploring the area behind my house shortly after we moved in. The area back there had once been a small quarry that had since filled with water. It was a pit of pond that supposedly went straight down 60 feet if you stepped into it. I was walking along the edge and I came across a backpack filled with old video game cartridges and a set of clothing just laying on the ground. They were for the N64 and we found this around 2004, so they were outdated. Next to it was a set of clothing. The clothes were laying on the ground, spread out, pants and shirt, so it looked like someone laying down. They looked like they'd been there a long time. Same with the backpack. I told my parents and they called the cops. There had been no reports of missing children or anything in the area. We never got an explanation, but it was weird. Edit. Just to answer some questions. I don't think it was a prank. While we were new to the neighborhood, we were renters. Also, most of our neighbors were elderly. This happened in a rural Virginia town, and I can't imagine anyone wasting cartridges like that since most kids were lucky to have an N64. No people, adult or child, had been reported by families or the neighborhood as missing for years. They never searched the quarry because they never had any reason to think there was something wrong. My sister and I went out there every day for a year or so and just avoided that spot because I was on the water international border. As far as I know, rife with trafficking and the like. Sometime after midnight I had a feeling that something wasn't right and it woke me up. One opened my eyes only to look directly at a man standing in my entry hallway, backlit by the hallway light. He slowly backed up upon seeing me awake and closed the door. I ran to wake up my then boyfriend in the bedroom and we went out to the hall to see who it could have been, but there was no sign of him. Probably a neighbor who got the wrong door, but still the creepiest thing LVE ever woken up to. It was the only night our front door wasn't locked because that was always my habit, and I had fallen asleep early. The odds of that, plus being all the way on the 16th floor. Was it a lost neighbor, someone checking doorknobs that night? The what if scare me more than anything. Edit. Thank you for the awards. Also, this comment pushed me over 100k karma. Woohoo. You/Hail to the Kingslayer responded. Not creepy as such, more just unexplained. As a kid I was round a friend's house after school. It was a sunny day, so we went to the park near his house, then through the woods there. His younger brother was with us as well. In the woods, beside the path, there were red berries on the ground. The berries had been arranged into 3 stick figures, which was weird as there were 3 of us. We got back to the house, and my friend and I decided to go back to take another look. His brother stayed at the house. When we got back there were only 2 stick figures. My friend snapped a photo on his phone, then responded, kicked the berries, maybe around age 14, early 90s. I have no idea what was going on. We were traveling from TX was it just up some to kind Tacoma, of prank Washington being pulled on us? We were about out of money, almost out of gas, to ground, no food. I meant stuck ground. In Chico, California. I have no idea why I sat in the car while Mom took my younger sisters to the restroom at a gas station. I was riddled with anxiety about our situation and looking down. The car door opened and I looked up. A lady that looked like a brown-haired Brady mom sat in the seat and faced me. She said, "It seems like you're down on your luck. Take this and give it to your mom. Tell her to pay it forward someday to someone who needs it." I looked down into my hand and there was a $100 bill. I looked up and she had disappeared. Nowhere in the parking lot, just vanished. I cried. When Mom came back I told her what happened and she cried. We got gas. There was a guy selling oranges on the side of the road and we bought a bag and went to a local park that had a part of the river with a little spillway dam and went swimming and ate oranges for a couple of hours before getting back on the road. I never saw the lady again, but she saved us and we did make it up to Tacoma to start our new life. Thank you, stranger lady with invisible powers. We never forgot your kindness. You/Sander20021 responded. This didn't exactly happen to me, but I got some backlash and bad vibes from it. My best friend and his mom were moving out of their house. They were the only ones living in the house, and he went to take one last selfie in his room. When he showed the picture to his mom, she goes, "Who is that?" Upon further inspection, he notices there was a straight-up white face, almost like a mask, looking over his shoulder from the attic hatch above his room. He always heard things from the attic but never saw anything. A few weeks later we went on a wrestling trip and stayed in a hotel. He showed the pic around to everyone in our room, and then some spooky things started happening. In our room we began hearing knocks on our door when nobody was there. Right after quarantine started, I got a package in the mail in the mirror. It was addressed to my name and my address. Everyone was a little freaked out about it and thought it could be the demon from the picture. To this day, and my friend who took it became so paranoid he played return address was avoid any demon space across the country. He said ever since he took that picture, he has had weird things happen to him. But it's been so long I'm not positive. There is one friend I'm thinking could have done it, but she has since passed away. It was not sent from overseas. It uses my full name, which I don't go by for anything except legal documents. I have a nickname I use almost exclusively. We had only been in this house for 8 months before I got this, and we don't really know our neighbors, and my Amazon account is under my husband's information. And thank you for the awards. The Creepiest responded. My grandma and I both saw a dead person in our laundry room once. So, the laundry connected to the kitchen by a doorway. The doorway connected to the living room, too. One afternoon, Grandma needed a hamper, so I followed her to the laundry. We saw the dead person as soon as we stepped foot in that doorway. It looked to be about my height, I was 6 or 7-ish, and totally black. Not as in a black person, but a literal black coating on its skin. It was slumped near the washing machine. We only saw it for a split second, enough time to register that it was there, and then it was gone. I remember my grandma saying, "Did you see that?" and laughing it off. Dragoevsky she got the hamper and did her thing, weight train and I just avoided the kitchen for which a while, meant a lot of dark night and on a semi-related note, track, I used to have the old gravel one close to the woods with no lights. I had nightmares. I didn't like running at the high school track for some reason, my pediatrician just wanted me to see a therapist. I'd hold my phone to time my laps, and one night while I was looking down at it, ghosts, someone tackled me out of nowhere. Wonder what it was. We rolled around on the ground, and he never said a word. As the garbage bag just because it was about that luckily, and I got up and ran towards the middle school. I ran into some people and they called the cops. I left all of my stuff behind and he didn't take any of it. It was pretty strange. Pine Tree Noodles responded. I was driving home from work on a long, somewhat dark road. I'll admit I was tired and cold and just wanted to get home. Speed limit was 60 miles per hour and I was doing closer to 70. Suddenly, a girl with long blonde hair, a black coat with brown fur on the hood and jeans just showed up in front of my car. I knew there was another car to my left up ahead, but it was black and all I saw was that it was stopped before I saw her. I managed to maneuver around her. I was freaked out. I turned to a side street and stopped to figure out what was happening. Then a tall guy with a black coat and short hair gets out of the driver's side of the stopped car. Charlatuna _ dragged her to the car while she was hired to load firewood and put her back in the basement. I called the police and gave them the description of the car and the direction it took off in. I usually swing the interior basement door as wide as I can when I walk in, and the door almost never closes completely. It's been 2 years. But once I heard it close, and when I was about to grab another load, I saw that the deadbolt could even know something. When I walk in, my arms are filled with firewood, so I wouldn't be able to lock it myself. Jan looked out the window and checked the garage to see if she came home, a new but she wasn't there. Maybe the door itself was with the tail light going all the way across the back of the car. I tried various ways of slamming the door so it would lock by itself, but nothing worked. It's an isolated house, so I would have heard someone drive up, and it's highly unlikely someone walked over just to lock the door and leave and time it while I was piling up firewood, and there's wooden steps, so I would have heard someone walking down them. It's the only time LVE seen a deadbolt lock itself in my life. You/Magnolry responded. A random cat on the street once protected me from a man who I didn't realize was following me. I was, stupidly, talking on my phone while walking home at night. I saw a man who was talking to himself near a park and I deliberately chose to walk down another street to avoid him. In the middle of my phone conversation, this orange cat comes up beside me and starts walking next to me. You/Deleted responded for about 3 blocks. My nana, me telling the person I was talking to how funny this lived overseas from one another my whole life. The cat starts to turn around and head back the other way. But because it was an international call, that same man extremely expensive, who had changed his original direction and had been following me for a few blocks. However, the cat got in between us and howled at him until he turned around and went the other way. Also, then the cat and I walked another block together. Mum called on a Sunday. Nana died on a Tuesday. I double-checked, and the man was sitting at the table eating breakfast. I can't be sure that the man wished me harm, but I know Nana would have been calling any minute for that cat. She gets emotional. I never believed in guardian angels. Then at 8:04 a.m. the motherfucking had that experience. The called ID reads, "Unknown caller." We look at each other like, what is this, some sort of sick joke? She answers, there's nothing but static at the other line, and some garbled voice recording. The only decipherable words in it are, "We hope you enjoy your trip to paradise." Click, phone cuts off. Absolutely no explanation for that one. Still baffles me to this day. Edit, I've been wanting to tell this story for years now, but every time I find a creepy, inexplicable thread it gets buried. So glad people are finally hearing this one, lol. Some have said maybe someone was playing an elaborate prank, but I'd prefer to see it as Nana sending us one last hoorah. She really loved my mum and I a lot, as we did her, too. She was a really kooky lady and this ending was extremely fitting of her. You/Cryptidalicat responded. I was walking my dog once around the pond in my grandmother's condominium gated community. It was supposed to storm that night, so it was windy all day. Like tree branches violently flailing around and small items being blown away. I got to the front of my grandmother building, there wasn't a soul in sight and suddenly it got really quiet. Which was weird because it was literally windy all day but the wind suddenly stopped. I sort of looked around and felt off. It was the kind of quiet you could hear. Suddenly a big gust of wind comes in and my dog starts freaking out. Ghosts and other worldly beings. I tug him to come towards the building this event so I could put the code in to get us inside when suddenly I hear a voice go hey right behind me. What was happening. It felt like when I was in middle school. To my ear. My family went turned around in New Mexico, and there still wasn't anyone. We were at a campsite near a lovely stream. And my dog was still freaking out. My parents had one tent, so I dragged him inside and I had another. Ran up the flight of stairs as I was settling down to sleep for the night and locked the door. I was listening to my headphones. I still have no idea what happened to this day edit, so I took my headphones off and was dozing off when I became hyper-aware of geriatric folks living in it beyond my grandmother's condo on the side of the tent. The area was used during the tuberculosis outbreak and a stalk of grass was brushing on the side of the tent. And they would cremate their bodies in a now abandoned building. There was no wind whatsoever. I asked my brother, I've also seen shadows in the window of the tower whenever I went to the park nearby. I pointed out the scratching noise. He took his hand and hit the side of the tent. In response, whatever it was, hit the side of the tent from outside of the tent. We both immediately began screaming hysterically. My parents came running and all the while the scratching continued. My parents said it was surely just a bug, a tent string or some vegetation and got a flashlight to look at the exterior of the tent. There was nothing. They brushed down the exterior, shook the tent, took everything out of the tent and shook it. The noise continued. I was completely in pieces so I went and slept in my parents' tent and my father slept in the kid tent. My brother and father reported that the scratching continued all night long. Still puzzled and freaked out by this experience. You/Yardobeef responded. The singing
a friend and I
bluebird
from high
responded.
school used to go out
I
to
was
this old
about
county
10
road
when
and
this
smoke
took
a joint
place.
on a big hill
I'm in my
facing a
early
large
30s
old
now.
brick house across the
I
street
remember
that
it was
sat in a
well
large
into late
field.
night hours
The face
when I
of the
saw my
house had
grandmother
two
was
rows of
standing
6
at the
windows
front
each,
screen door
facing
looking
the road.
outside. One
She
night
was
we were
talking
chilling
to
on said
someone.
hill and looking
I
out
saw
at the
she was
house
talking
as the
to
sun
my
was going
dad.
down, and all
I
of a
couldn't
sudden a
see my
light turned
dad's
on in one
face
of the
'cause
windows
he was
and then
facing
shut
away
off.
from her.
Then
He
another
was
random
shirtless.
window lit up.
He had
then
a very
shut off.
large, distinct
It kept
mole
going
in the middle of his back.
faster,
so I knew
faster.
it was him.
A window
He
would
was
light up
mumbling
and shut
something
off
I
and then
couldn't
go to another.
understand.
It did it
My
for about a
grandmother
minute
was
and
telling him
eventually was
something
doing
along
it
the
so
lines
quickly
of,
it
"If
couldn't
you
have
loved them
possibly
so
been a
much,
person
why did you
going
go
room
and
to
do
room
this?"
or even a person
My
with
mom
access
wasn't
to
there with
multiple
us to
switches
see
at one
this.
time.
She
After
had
about
left
a minute
moments
after
before
speeding up
after
to
she got a
random
call
flashes,
letting
it
us know
stopped.
my dad had
It
been
simply
driving
didn't
drunk
make
and hit a
sense.
mule on the
We
highway.
both saw it.
My
We
dad was
talked
in the
about
hospital
it many times
hanging
afterward.
life. The only
Edit.
thing we can figure
Added
is if
age
the
and
homeowner
approximate
had some
time.
kind of automated lighting system hooked up to all the rooms and was messing with us. Other than that, I have no idea.
Sketchy AF though.
Edit. Some of you chalking up the experience to cannabis, I don't think you understand how weed works. I've never hallucinated from being high in my life, and it would make zero sense for me and my friend to have the same hallucination at the same time.
You/Indie responded.
A few days ago, I woke up feeling something horribly wrong within my mouth. I moved my tongue around a bit and realized that I bit my tongue in my sleep. I'm not talking about some slight nibble or something. No, I ripped the tip with my front teeth. On top of this, I couldn't find my glasses.
Bolin
I always
responded.
leave them on the
I
nightstand
once woke
next
up
to
in
my
a tent
bed
before
in
I
the middle
sleep,
of the night,
but this
while
one
camping
morning
in the
they
Upper
just
Peninsula
vanished.
with my friends.
I tore my room
I
asunder
heard this
looking for
dude
them,
shouting
but
and
no
screaming
luck.
about a bear.
Whatever happened
telling
that
it
night
to
while I was
asterisk
asleep,
CK
or
off
maybe
and
even
stuff.
unconsciously
Naturally,
active,
I
it's
woke
really
my
been
buddy up and
inconveniencing
told
me
him
for the
what was
last few
up, and he
days.
said he could hear it too. We got out of our tent and searched for almost an hour around the campsite and found nothing, then proceeded to find a Red Wings hat that was neither of ours. We took watch turns the rest of the night. And I'm pretty sure he still has the hat to this day. Note, UP is a term used by people familiar with Michigan as the Upper Peninsula, the arrow-looking thing above the mitten. You/Usernamima responded. I once woke up while staying in an old cabin in a mostly abandoned mining town to find the black silhouette of a little girl standing beside my bed staring at me. I was just like, oh fuck, a ghost, so L stared at it until it faded away, waving my arm through where it was before I got up and walked to the kitchen to check the time. When I was about 5, I was going down the stairs of my house, when suddenly there was some sort of mist in front of me. I had a dream once where he visited me and hugged me and told me he loved me, and everyone he left behind were being pulled into individual strands, then he loved her and was with her every day. I woke up and went to school thinking it'll tell Gran when I get home from to the other side of the house where my younger brother was. To talk to my grandma,
He
and she
screamed
started telling me
shortly
about
after
how
I
her day
did.
was awful
My
because her
mom
church
was
was
nearer
doing a
to
Remember
him,
the Dead
so
thing,
she
and
went
no
to
one
him
had warned her,
first.
but she didn't want
When
to
I
leave,
got
and
into
she
the
was all
room
alone.
where he was,
and
he
she
was
told
really
me all
scared,
this,
and he
ended
kept on
on saying
saying
the
the
eyes.
eyes,
And the worst
the rainbow
part is I
eyes.
haven't even had a
We
dream
hadn't
with Grandpa
talked,
in it,
so he didn't
I
know
haven't
what
been
I had
able to
just
see
seen.
him. My
So that was
parents
pretty
knew a
crazy,
priest,
considering
considering
the
the
first
first
thing
thing
out of
and
my
he did
mouth
some
after
sort
that
of a
was
blessing.
telling her about my
We
dream.
never had any
Grandpa
issues
knew.
after that. It was definitely very creepy. You/deleted responded. When I was in high school, I would always be the first to arrive home out of my family, having the entire house to myself. I've never been superstitious or someone who scared easily, and the hour I had alone was my favorite time of the entire day. My bedroom is upstairs, and one day when I got home from school I placed my bag away and started up the stairs. About halfway I stopped because I thought I heard something coming from upstairs, so I stayed and listened. I heard a very slow rendition of the melody from Ring Around the Rosie, crystal clear, coming from my bedroom. I was 100% sure I was the only one home, and I had absolutely no device that could be playing music unprompted, especially Ring Around the Rosie. I froze in fear and listened for about 15 seconds to make sure I was really hearing it, which I was. I just turned back down the steps and waited around in the living room for my family to get home before I went back upstairs. I went in my room a few hours later and there was nothing out of the ordinary. I know it's not a very climatic story, but it's something I think about every now and then. I never told anyone about it because, why would I? But that was the first time something truly strange happened to me. You/American Chess responded. I apologize for grammar of spelling mistakes. There was a kid in another class at my school in high school grade that AOL was new and chat rooms were super popular. I was really smart when we finally got the first PC and still gets a 100. Like his was doing advanced calculus with a local college professor after school. Old men. This kid was smarter than everyone. He was in his late 30s. So one day our computer system for the entire school goes down. He could have been in a poorer area for all anyone knew, so this was normal. I was a teenage girl. This was occurred many times, so normally it would affect him to not talk to me. Used laptops. He then made a fake account claiming he was a teenage boy, but then he started talking like he did before, and I caught on. This kid was in the computer class. Why so much effort to talk to a plain 16-year-old? Later, when I'm class with him during social studies, so much can happen when he hasn't really done anything jackets on, and our local chief escorted him out of the building. My parents are out, and my brother is gone. The parents were told nothing, and it's him. It never tells me he knows I'm alone. To this day, we have no clue what my house looks like, except every single teacher LVE tells me he could easily come to me if I asked nothing. I told him I'm not amused since, and I can't find a trace of him going to any other school or ending up in trouble. It was just, he just fell off the face of the earth with his parents. Yeah, I forgot to mention that parents also disappeared and no one really looked for them after a month or so. I still think about that kid. You/McUltra responded. About 10 years ago, my dad was in the hospital and my mom asked me one night if I could go and stay with him for a while the next morning because she had a medical appointment of her own. It was a cold November morning and when I went out to leave, there were starlings swirling everywhere, a murmuring I think it's called. They were all around me, like a bird tornado. I headed to the hospital and made my way up to his room. When I got there, he was laying in bed facing the door. He was suffering from dementia and not all in the moment. He saw me and said, "Hey son, what are you doing here?" I said that I thought I would come and keep him company for a bit. He stated, "You didn't have to do that, I sent the birds to tell you." I felt chills down my neck and turned toward the window. After a few seconds I asked him how he sent the birds. His response was, "What birds?" Just strange, and it still gives me chills. You/Bobbity-Bob responded. So my brother, myself, and our friend were driving through Vermont heading to a cabin to go snowboarding for the week. I was sitting passenger in my brother's car when I noticed a bright red light, it's night, in the sky.
It was coming from deep in the woods but was shining in a huge dome shape. The light seemed to be restricted to the dome. The light did not seem to travel far, but it was very bright. We were so baffled we pulled over at this small gas station on the road to get a better look. There were about 6 other people who seemed to live there also looking at the light. They were telling us there was no buildings or factories out there whatsoever. As our conversation continued, the light seemed to diminish, but then almost imploded on itself and burst out with a huge white light that lit up the sky and surrounding area. Then about 10-ish seconds after this change, a huge wind gust came at us from the direction of the light. I'd say it was about 15 to 25 miles per hour winds, not unexplained. I hike and am just making comparisons to the wind on mountains. He hit the light just began to fade away. Everyone kind of froze in our cars and kept going. There were kids around. The light didn't fully diminish, so it was a very shocking moment. Craziest shit ever, and he was moaning while a pool of blood was oozing out of his head. This little old lady was brushing his hair out of his face and whispering encouraging words to him while we waited at the time. Had enough light outside, so I was never scared of going out that it shattered both his legs. One night, had to be amputated. As I walked down the stairs, allegedly he was on psychedelics and fell out the window under the stairs. But I ended up becoming friends with people who used to know him, and they said that he tried to commit suicide because his family wouldn't allow him to date his boyfriend because it was against their religion. I was too afraid to inspect it, so I walked the dog around the neighborhood for 5 minutes and died from an overdose. When I got back, the large brown thing was gone. I stood there for a second before gathering up the courage to go up the stairs. My dog, however, refused to go up. I scooped him up and ran up the stairs into the comfort of my own home. A few days later, I sat in the living room minding my own business. From the corner of my eye, I saw something brown and furry crawl from the ceiling into my room. That night, I had a dream I was being attacked by an unknown creature. I covered myself in my blanket and it scratched and tore at it, yelling obscenities at me. I got angry and launched myself at it, punching and scratching at a large brown furry creature. When I woke up, my dog was there watching me and whining. IDK, what to even think this was? U/SacredWolf72 responded. This didn't happen to me but to my mom. We used to live in this one house that the past 2 owners killed themselves in. One of them hung themselves in the basement, you know, the scariest part of the house. While living there, doors would slam shut by themselves and other creepy things would happen, but this one time my mother was going downstairs to do laundry. She always had a creepy feeling being in the basement, like someone was watching her, so she always wanted my dad to go down too, but he was at work, me and my siblings were at school, and she was home alone. Laundry needed done badly, so she just went down by herself. But on her venture down the steps, she saw a man with a goat head running at her. I was talking to a guy, and in mid-sentence to go down there alone for a long time till my dad got a whole brand new topic, and sorta kinda demanded the ghost demon to leave the house. Like it went, they were going to that restaurant in basements alone, even after we moved. The motor in the transom, but it was a transom, haha, so I said fuck it and sold it to this lady. When I looked at him like, he looked at me like, we didn't say anything about it at the time, I just said,